My name is Alice Brooke. I'm an Associate Professor of Spanish at the University of Oxford, and I'm part of the Modern Languages Outreach team. And this is a short video to introduce you to the study of literature as part of the Modern Languages course in Oxford. So I'll be covering why we include literary study as part of our Modern Languages degree courses, what kinds of things you might study, why you might want to think about applying to study with us, and finally, what kinds of things you can do to prepare for the literature element of an interview for the Modern Languages course at Oxford. So first of all, why study literature as part of a Modern Languages degree? Well, the first reason is that we think it's a fantastic way of improving your language skills. In fact, we think it's one of the best ways to improve your language skills outside of spending time in the country where your language is spoken. So reading literary text exposes you to a whole range of different styles and registers outside of the kinds of speech you would encounter in normal everyday interactions. The second reason is that we think it's a great way to develop your critical thinking. So reading literary texts teaches you how to engage critically with the language that makes up a text, thinking about how language can be used to inform, to persuade, to create new imaginary worlds, or even perhaps to manipulate or to deceive its readers. We also use literature as part of the course to expose you to the history and culture of the countries or regions where your language is spoken. So we use literary text to explore historical events, artistic or philosophical movements, and changing understandings of concepts like race, gender, or religion. And finally, we think that literature is one of the few subjects where your object of study is something that is designed to be enjoyable, to be read for pleasure. And we think that this goes a long way to making our courses really enjoyable and fulfilling for students. So what do we actually study as part of the literature course? Now, it's important to say that these things will vary slightly from language to language, but broadly speaking, the first year is really designed as an introduction to literature in the language that you're studying. So you'll read a whole range of texts from the medieval to the modern periods, and you'll probably cover some prose, so that might be novels, short stories, or philosophical texts, but also probably some poetry and some drama. We also try to cover a broad geographical range in what we're teaching. So, for example, if you are studying Spanish, you'll read texts both from the peninsula and from Spanish America. And we also try to cover both canonical or kind of big name writers, as well as some lesser known authors that you might not have come across before. And here the idea is that we really adopt a kind of taster approach. So here we're laying the foundations in skills of literary analysis, and we're also allowing you to sample a wide range of authors and genres, and that will help to then guide your choices in later years. So what happens if you're studying a language from scratch? So here, literary study also begins right from the start of the course in Oxford, probably after you've taken a pre-sessional before term starts. The focus to start with is on shorter, accessible texts, and we give you tons of support to help you to read them. So that might be using side-by-side translations, for example, or through lectures or reading classes that will really help you to get to grips with those texts. And the idea here really is that your literary skills develop alongside your language fluency, and in fact that your reading in the literary text, so the new vocabulary and sentence structures that you'll be reading, really then feed into what you're doing in your language classes. In subsequent years, so that's years 2 to 4, is where you really get to specialise in what you're interested in. So again, this is going to vary slightly from language to language, but broadly speaking, you'll have the choice of taking some period papers. So these would offer you a wide range of authors and topics within a particular period. So that can be medieval, early modern, or modern. You can then choose from what we call special author papers, which allow you to study the works of a couple of authors in really quite some depth. And again, they can be from the medieval, early modern, or modern periods. In the final year, we also offer what we call special subject papers, and these are more topic-based or thematic papers that allow you to explore topics such as autobiography in modern French literature, or women's writing in early modern Spain, or the connections between art and literature, for example. And all of these things are topics and papers that can be taken alongside papers in linguistics, film, history, etc. So why might you want to come to study literature as part of the Modern Languages course in Oxford in particular? Well, the first thing is that we are a really big faculty, so we have over 100 academic staff, and that means that we have a really wide range of specialisms, and which allows you to really tailor your choices to what you're interested in. We also offer world-class library facilities, so the Taylor Institution, which is the faculty library, has over 500,000 books, and that is dwarfed by the collection of the Bodleian Library, which is a copyright library, so we get a copy of every single book that is published in the United Kingdom. Both of those libraries also offer a wide range of digital resources, so you can download articles and books straight to your computer, your mobile device, and read them from the comfort of your own room. We also receive top rankings in teaching and research. So we were awarded gold in the latest UK government teaching excellence framework. And over the past 4 years, we've also consistently been ranked in the top 3 modern languages departments in the world through the QS University rankings. Because of our size and the number of languages that we offer, we also have a really lively academic environment, and there are film screenings and lectures and seminars going on just about every day of term. In recent years, for example, we've been able to invite several of the authors that students study as part of the literature course to Oxford, and students have been able to engage firsthand with the authors that they've been studying. And finally, we're one of the few places who is still able to offer tutorial teaching. So that's where you would meet in groups of 3 or 2 or perhaps even one-on-one with an academic who specialises in the field that you're wanting to study. So that means that whatever your interests, even if it's as specialised as something like poetry in Latin America in the 1960s, you're going to find somebody in Oxford who shares that interest and who can't wait to explore that interest with you through tutorials. So what experience do I need? That's a question that we often get. And the answer is that beyond the A-level or GCSE or equivalent in a modern language that is required depending on your particular course choice, we don't expect students to arrive with any previous literary training necessarily. So most of our students arrive without formal literary training, like an A-level in English literature, or having studied literature as part of their modern languages A-level. If you have, that's great, but it's not a requirement. We very much teach our literature courses from scratch, and we don't assume that you have any prior knowledge. And then what can you do to prepare for interview? So it's important to state that as interviewers, what we're looking for is an aptitude for literary study, curiosity, motivation, and commitment. And the way that candidates can display this is through a breadth of reading, both in English and in the language that they're applying to study, if it's a post-A-level language, and an ability to discuss that reading in an interesting way. So some ideas of some of the things to help get you started would be bilingual editions, where you've got facing pages of English and a foreign language text. Things like short stories or perhaps poetry or plays that allow you to read some of these works in a length that is manageable. You might want to think about reading longer works by authors in translation. And if you are studying literature at A-level, then you might want to start reading further works by the author that you've been studying beyond what's actually required necessarily on your syllabus. And in each case, I think it's a good guideline for you to aim for works that challenge you enough that you don't understand every single word that you're reading, but that are accessible enough that you can kind of get the gist of what you're reading without looking up every single word. That brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening. There's a wealth of information that you can continue to explore on the Oxford University and Modern Languages website and on our social media pages. Thank you very much for listening.